Welcome to Source Medicine. My name is Nikolay Ayerov, quantum security specialist and founder of Avo Peace.
And I'm Anita, medical herbalist, biomedical scientist, intuitive healer, and frequency medicine practitioner. Together, we explore what it means to remember that healing doesn't start with fixing something broken, but with listening to what is already whole.
Each week, we'll travel between the seen and the unseen, from ancient herbal wisdom, nutrition, and nervous system science, to energy work, polarity, and the quiet intelligence that moves through all of us.
Our conversations aren't prescriptions, they are invitations. We are not here to tell you what's true, but to help you feel truth in your own body.
So wherever you are, walking, driving, taking a rest, let it remind you that you are part of the medicine.
This is Source Medicine.
We're going to be, I think, speaking closer around the lines of safety, where we'll break you down into the biology of safety, the energetics of safety, and then how those two bridge together. Because at the end of the day, this is Source Medicine podcast, so we're bringing both the physical and non-physical. If you don't mind, I would love to kind of start asking you just a few questions. I like to follow up on how did you experience your personal safety journey from, well, basically since we last spoke, because we also, if you go back to I believe our first episode, that's when you spoke about your story and you shared a lot of vulnerable times. But the story continues, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they never, and the pages keep turning. So what pages have turned for you ever since to come to your parents' house, and how have you felt that shift within your own internal safety, and how, because obviously you mentioned when you're in survival, it's very difficult to feel safe, right? Especially when there are certain things logistically that are happening, that even when the logistics are fine, but when you're not feeling well and you're physically just having a hard time, especially if you're feeling some form of relapse, having that form of stress or burden internally is very taxing. I'm almost certain there's many people that are going through situations and they do feel guilty about potentially being a burden to any, like, family members or different things, where your family would potentially love for you to be there, but there's a part of you that says, hey, I don't want to lean on them too much because X, Y, and Z, whatever guilt, shame, blame that you feel, or judgment within yourself. If you kind of want to elaborate a little bit, that transition basically since the beginning of this year, how did that feel for you, and how are you feeling now?
Since I would say last year, I know you asked about starting from this year on, but there's a big change which happened to me maybe since the May last year. And yes, I agree. Many years ago, I felt like I would be a burden because I was constantly ill. I don't feel that anymore because the more you go into yourself and the more you start to understand actually why your soul chose that path, you feel grateful for that path. Everybody has something, some heavier situation. Is it like in relationship, in family, or with health? But still, I believe we need all to find the positives of that. Because we are not here to suffer. We are here to enjoy life, but we will enjoy that life when we will finally feel that the life we have, it was chosen by the soul not to harm us, but actually to evolve us. Even I have now relapsed. The only thing I would say it's related absolutely to the safety. Because as maybe I mentioned in the first episode, I was close to death maybe 7 times. It puts a lot of stress on the nervous system, to the point that I started to scan my environment. And to the point I started to scan my body. Every ache was deeply analyzed in my brain because I think I was scared that the whole sickness is coming back.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to experience that. If you ask me what happened, let's say last year and now, I well, I still will scan to some extent my body, because if I feel symptoms, I question where this symptom come from, but I don't do anymore this only at the physical level. So I'm not thinking like, as all scientists, like, oh, which metabolic pathway is now disbalanced, or which nutrients I need. I rather start to go much deeper. What that symptom is telling me, what didn't I address until now, that the symptom starts to come over and over again. I don't think that I'm connecting this to something very dangerous anymore, or like life-threatening. When you are in the place when you can feel safe, you have more time to actually thinking and working on your inner self to feel that safety within you.
Yeah, that's very impactful because the environment I feel like is very important to restabilize safety. And when the environment is not as easy or as hospitable in that moment, it could be work-life balance for many people. For other people, it could be something as disastrous as war, as that's seemingly that's not an uncommon thing anymore. So there's many different levels of safety people find, but it seems like if you are going through some kind of situation, there's a good chance there's some form of support platform out there, be it family members, be it loved ones, be it a very supportive friend group. And if there's not, I'm sure something will appear where you can have a space where you can feel held. And simply feeling held sometimes could be as basic as food and shelter, because really the physical body only knows safety in very specific ways. It just knows, do I have resources, meaning do I have enough calories that I can sustain myself? Do I have enough water that I can keep myself balanced? Do I have, the electrolytes? Do I have enough rest? And do I have shelter? Right? All of those things, that's really what all the body thinks about safety. Then now the consciousness and the personality thinks about safety in a wider perspective. It's do I have a social connection? Do I have a feeling? Do I feel lonely or do I feel held? Do I feel physically safe? Do I feel like I will be threatened in any way? Does my bodily harm can come to me in any capacity? And everyone has specific preferences of how safety would look like. What would you be like? Some people don't feel very safe around cities. Like for example, for me, I don't. It's not that I don't feel safe around cities, but eventually I get overwhelmed if I'm in a city for too long. I was raised in New York City for about 30 years, and I feel like that wasn't for me. And now I can be in cities for short periods of time until I will get to a point where my nervous system cannot keep up with the constant stimulation of a city environment. And so that's why I prefer slower pace. So
Mhm.
that's also a form of safety in that sense, because if you're overstimulated, that means you become overwhelmed, and overwhelmed symbolizes danger essentially to your nervous system, because that's saying your capacity is not energetically is not in alignment anymore. And many people feel better living in the forest. Many people feel better living in near mountains. Some people really like living next to water. For me, I almost need to see water every day because there's something psychologically that it grounds and helps you reestablish. So those are all the basic levels of how I think the consciousness in the body, for the most part, feels safety, right? And regulates safety. And there's also, if you want to go into the polarity safety, how women scan men and how men understand safety, because men and women understand safety in a very different way, because there's very fundamentally different experiences there. But I don't think we're going to get so much into the polarity aspect of it in this aspect. We're going to just speak about more the medical components and how they tie into energetically as well. In that sense, how you felt maybe the relapse that you're speaking about, because you spoke about your story, how it was very challenging for you, and then you had like a spike upwards where like, wow, things started improving, and you started you had long patterns, or you couldn't figure it out because you're constantly scanning the how's the mitochondria doing, how's the photon receptors in the cells, or whatever genetic sequencing you're trying to figure out where's the missing piece, and you're just kind of hitting a roadblock, and then you've discovered, okay, well, there's an energetic component to this that I wasn't ignoring. And then when you hit the energetic component, then you're like, okay, now if I listen to certain things, there might be emotions that are stored. There might be energy that is diluting the biological components of, let's say, the liver or the stomach or the gut, and how the thyroid is working, however. So we discovered that there is a synergy where it's almost 50-50, where you can't just focus on the biological, and you can't just focus on the energetic. You have to kind of meet them both, a more or less healthy relationship with a man and a woman. And obviously there's times where the percentage doesn't always go 50-50. Sometimes, one has to, the energetic might be greater and the physical might be greater at certain points, because your body will still need, proper nutrients. Like, for example, for me, I'll literally just put salt in my mouth because that's how I remineralize and help my nervous system actually signal better, because electrical signals are constantly flowing through your body. And if you really was to gather all of the electricity in a human body, there's some studies and metrics that are basically saying one human can power like one city, because there's just so much charge in each vessel. Each of ours, there's trillions of cells essentially, right? So if you imagine even the smallest spark of energy multiplied by a trillion times, it's going to be quite a big charge. So most people, I don't think, understand how much of like electricity actually flows through the human body. Basically, the electrolyte balance is what keeps that working as basically as good as possible. But also, that's another level of safety. If your electrical systems are not properly functioning, that's where some people may experience like what fibromyalgia or different nerve pains or different signals. But every pain is more or less also just information that's saying, hey, if I didn't feel knee pain and I kept working, like kept walking on my knee, eventually your knee would collapse. It would rub out, and it would structurally collapse. It would not work. So pain is necessary for you not to get to a point where you've ignored the mechanics such a long time. Nobody likes pain, like including me. I try to avoid pain as much as possible. But at the same time, pain is just simply a check engine light in your system, right? It's saying there's something wrong, and if you don't, if you or have the grace to understand what is actually trying to tell you, then you can actually create a solution. Because most of the time, people just want to be diagnosed properly. That is a big part, I think, of any chronic disease. That's for the most part in the medical industry. It seems like most diseases become a mystery, like especially when they're chronic, especially when they're inflammatory, especially when they're debilitating. Many medical practices, even something as like I think I spoke about my father at one point where he had like numbness in his right arm. He went to like 7, 12 different specialists. Nobody knows anything. Like they say, we don't know. It's just you have a pinched thing in your thing, and I'm sorry to tell you that you have a problem. Right. So like what does that do for anything? Many people that have chronic diseases, they just want to know, hey, can I have a direction to go somewhere, to go into one specific location and to know, okay, I have this problem. And if I know I have this problem, and if it's properly diagnosed, then I can actually tackle it in some meaningful way. But if you don't know, how can you fix something that you don't know? Right? How can you even address it? Like, how do you even like tackle it? So I feel like I can understand the helpless feeling that must feel of not even knowing what's wrong with you to even begin the journey to fix it or to even meet it where it needs to be met. So I feel like that's a very, I'm deeply compassionate for that experience. So in that sense, bringing that 50% energetic awareness into these situations brings, I think, a lot of safety just in itself, because when people feel diagnosed, even if nothing changes, they feel automatically like, wow, at least I have control over this situation. Now I know where to go. Now I know at least if I have like a nerve issue or if I have immune issue or whatever it is, how like or it could just be a suppressed emotion that's been going for a long time. This might be a little controversial, but most cancers are just a lot of anger that's been stored for a long, long time. And now it's metastasizing as a deviation in a specific genetic sequencing that metastasizes in something that corrupts the healthy cells, right? So everyone's always saying, let's figure out cancer, but realistically, there's many things that are happening, and there's many misinformations left and right. But at the same time, the energetic component is very valuable. So for you, how have you felt like how have you experienced this specific what how you call a relapse, and how has safety played a role in relaxing you a little bit? But also, how has your relationship with feeling like you might be relapsing, because you said that was a big aspect. How do you feel that's been evolving? And what do you feel is the biggest component that's helping you kind of unwind this journey?
It's not just my story. I see this with my clients. I see this with other people, even with friends who struggle with some chronic issues. We all can do all possible physical things. So, and that's what I was doing as well. The right protocols, right supplements, the diet, lifestyle changes, everything, they improve my health. But still, if there's relapse, that means something else must be addressed. And for many years, I didn't pay attention to that. I was living in this constant survival mode, like just tension inside my body, just scanning. And now I realize, oh, wow, actually, I created partially some of the symptoms because my nervous system was out of balance, because I was constantly scanning for danger, telling my body that there is a danger. So, of course, the body created such a physiological, biochemical responses to that danger. That all comes from this imbalance between the two arms of the nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And before, when I had relapses, I was always panicking because I didn't pay attention to the nervous system. I was really focusing on parasites, heavy metals, proper diet, movement, all possible things. But I ignored the nervous system. Of course, I wanted to sleep, and I slept, and I regulated that. And if I was anxious, I could take herb to not feel anxious. But it's not just telling yourself like, okay, you are safe, you are safe. It's not the word, it's not the language, it's actually the feeling, experience that will make you feel safe. Even I'm at my family place, I don't rely on the fact that, oh, I will feel safe because they are here. No, because I have a place when I can rest, where I can teach myself to feel safe within me. So the relapse this time was, again, surprise, but it wasn't that stressful anymore as it was before. I suddenly started to feel something. But the first thing what I did, it wasn't like, maybe, okay, I will be honest. For maybe 1 minute, I panicked. After a minute, after two, I started to a bit regulate myself, and I felt like, okay, Anita, this is your brain what is telling you, like it's scanning for the danger. It
And how
expects
did
the
you regulate
danger.
yourself in that moment? Like, can you
Breathing, breathing,
just
just deep breathing, very calm breathing, and tuning into my heart space, just relaxing, not thinking what's there in the breast, rather thinking, okay, just I want to relax. I want to feel like my muscles, my organs are not tense. For me, the breathing is like really quick solution to achieve that. When I did that, I started to feel actually what that could be. And the thing what popped up was emotions. And funny enough, it were not even my emotions. Of course, I'm aware of the physical aspects of it, so I'm not ignoring and focusing only, because my approach is holistically. So yes, there are physical aspect, the emotional, then it's energetic aspect, and all are important. There's not that one is more important than the others. They are all important and must be addressed.
And how have you learned to delineate what's yours and what's not yours? Most people don't even feel energy, but when you do feel it, how did you learn to differentiate between this is an emotion that you have to feel to this is emotion that's not even yours, but it's someone, so you're carrying it?
This was a long process, because since I got
It's like
sick,
training a muscle.
because since I got sick, and that's already maybe 10 years ago, that was exactly time when my grandpa passed. Like, started to get sick after he passed, and now I know that it was also linked to grief. I started, I think, to feel what I told already in the first episode, to feel his presence, and that started to awaken me. I went to different courses, like theta healing, brain and heart coherence, and just for myself, just to experience what they are about. And I was practicing that, sometimes regularly, sometimes not regularly, to the moment that I started to feel it more and more and more. And especially since the last year, I'm sensing more, and I can just feel, is it mine or not? Like, it's hard to explain in words, it's hard to explain such a things. But I believe that we all have this capacity. We just have to train it.
Yeah.
It's even not that we have to learn, we just have to remember them. But we remember that by repeating. Like if you go to gym, your muscles start to grow. So it's the same with energy work. When you focus, when you exercise this, you start to feel more and more. If you would ask me this question 10 years ago, I would say like, oh, I don't feel anything at all, because I was so just in my head, in my brain, like the scientific brain, analyzing every single thing to the really tiny details at the biological level. But now it's something very obvious for me. Like, I just tune. For me, the point is to exactly calm down, get out from my head, relax, and then the feeling is just coming. And I know, is it mine? Is it not mine? Is it emotion? Is it real or something more serious physically?
So to get it, because I think a lot of people would like a little bit more practical understanding of, let's say, how would you go about? We usually talk, especially privately, about, and we'll go through understanding how the mechanics work, but also we'll start releasing certain patterns within there. But how would you address like this specific thing? Because it's obviously physical, but there's also energetic components, like you said, you're holding on to something potentially ancestral, right? So how does the ancestral component anchor into the physical body? And then how can you get symptom relief and potentially remission completely where that issue or the hardness will dissolve? Yeah.
First, I'm grounding. I just go to the heart space. I feel the light which comes from the ground, from the Mother Earth, and I place it to my heart, and I redistribute all over my body. Kind of, I want to, let's say, shine inside. Then I start to just scan. Of course, I prepare myself with doing a lot of breathing, relaxing breathing, and there are different techniques. So one should find its own technique. Like, for example, in, I think, Ho'oponopono, then use ha breathing. Then I'm using, if I want to do something fast, I'm using this kind of square breathing. So 4, 4, 4, 4, or then 4 seconds inhale, 8-second exhale.
Wim Hof also has a breathing method. So there's many different,
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when I feel that I'm relaxed, I start to scan my body. What I mean, I close my eyes and I just see from the top of my head, I'm going like through whole the body to my toes. And wherever I feel or I notice something is not okay. So for example, I noticed that, let's say it was thyroid, and I noticed something. I started to see thyroid like very dark. I spent a bit of time there. And I started to look more deeper. I start to question what I see there, what's the color, what's the shape, and how does it feel for me? Do I feel some emotion? And if the emotion comes, for example, like let's say anger, why the anger comes there? Is it my anger? Is it somebody anger? And it just comes. I start to see even myself or in some kind of situation in the past, or I see somebody's life or situation. And then I know, trust me, like a few years ago, I wouldn't be aware that I can do such a things. But again, training, training, training. So we all can do it. And when I tune into it, if it's mine, I'm talking to myself like I would be a small girl. I give a lot of love, understanding. I'm asking a few questions, and then I'm helping to release emotion. If that's somebody's, there's another layer, because do I want to be involved in that? Quite often, I feel that person's emotion. So what I do, I usually discuss with that person, and I try not to do the job myself, but just telling the person what it could be done. I see that he or she can release it at the end. Like if you feel it where it was, you can literally take it out from the body. Maybe you can feel it like, let's say, pain or needle, and you can energetically, remove it. At the end, what's I think for me, it's important that I again, let's say, recharge myself with the Mother Earth. So again, I'm redistributing that energy from my heart, the light from my heart to that particular place, and I'm recharging myself. And this is it. And usually the next day I feel really light. When I did it last time, I didn't focus only on the physical things and taking the next supplement. Yes, I've been taking them also because I want to also help my physical body at that particular moment. But I went into more energetic work. I saw many things. And when I removed that, just a few minutes after, I started to cough. I got a fever. I got chills, which lasted for 1 hour. And actually, I felt so happy because I felt, wow, it finally went out from my body. Previously, I would say like, oh my God, why I have a fever? Why I'm having chills? Why this is aching? But, the more we are aware that we are not just physical body, the more safe we also will start to feel during our healing process.
Because we're not ignoring that aspect of us.
We are
Because if
not.
you're just dealing with your physical body, you're dealing with 50% of who you are, but that's still ignoring half of
Yeah.
you. So,
And if I can add something, because
yeah.
I was one of the person before I went into emotions and energetics, which I would do all possible protocols, let's say, to the point that I think I started to be even addicted to them, because I felt that, oh, wow, if I do that detox, it gives me freedom. It gives me freedom.
Because it saved you at one point, right? Because it helped you very visibly and
That's
very
the thing.
practically. And so now your brain has a pattern that says, hey, I have this works for me. If I do this when I feel sick, I get fine. But then when it becomes, like you said, an addiction or a pattern or something where you rely on it too much, then what it was before is not the same. And I think it's very similar to many other patterns or traumatic situations that saved you at one point, but now they're actually limiting you in the now. So is
Actually,
it
they can
similar?
be harmful
Exactly.
because you may touch something which shouldn't be touched anymore.
Yeah.
You say to your brain that
You're
you are
flushing things
not
out.
safe. So
Yeah.
again, adrenaline, cortisol,
Cortisol. Yeah.
which starts the whole loop of different biochemical processes that actually will give you symptoms also. So you also have to distinguish, is it like real symptom because there is a problem, or is it a symptom just from the pattern of the nervous system?
And one curious thing I want to tie into all of this is how can people know, first of all, what is the parasympathetic nervous system? What is the sympathetic nervous system? Because these are two switches essentially, or two modes your body functions in, and one regulates almost the active fight or flight, response, and the other one active is more of the safety and healing response, right? So if you're in, and many people are in always the stimulated one, right?
Mhm.
So which one is that? And then which one is the one where you can actually start doing meaningful healing work? And this is
Mhm.
not just emotional and trauma based, but this is
Mhm.
also physical.
Mhm.
Because from what I understand, and from I think what we agree on is only one can you have meaningful healing happening biologically and energetically. And the other one, it's basically like pressing the gas and the brake at the same time in a car.
Autonomic nervous
Yeah,
system controls the processes in the body that are not dependent on our thinking. Yeah, that I have to think now, I have to take a breath. So the heart rate, the breathing, the hormonal regulation, immune system regulation, digestion, they are all regulated by the autonomic nervous system, exactly by these two branches, so sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system is this kind of exactly the survival mode, the fight and fly response. If you start to think there is a danger, yeah, the danger can come from also inside. If there is like chronic hidden infection, it's constantly stimulates the sympathetic nervous system because it's a danger, so it has to act upon it. But usually we are thinking of the danger just from the mind perspective. If your mind recalls somehow that there is a danger or the symptoms is a danger for you, the sympathetic nervous system starts to be active. So what's happening? The breathing starts to be more shallow and very fast because you have to get more oxygen to the body. Because the body thinks, well, you are in danger, so we need to give you more oxygen in case you need to run. So more blood will also start to go to the muscles in case you have to run. So this blood, instead of going to the organs to nourish them, it will actually,
digestion or healing, yeah.
absolutely. So the hormonal system will get disbalanced, the more cortisol will be produced, adrenaline, and also the sympathetic nervous system will shut down the processes which that particular moment are not important for your survival.
Yeah.
Like, for example, digestion.
Yeah.
Digestion will get messed up. Then on the opposite, we have this parasympathetic nervous system, which is this rest and digest. And it's also called the healing branch of the nervous system because exactly it regulates the heart rate, so it slows a bit the heart rate. It makes you take a very deep breath. The blood will go into the organs, supply the organs, so not just with the blood itself, but with nutrients, with immune cells that are important for healing. We have to remember that these two arms, they work together. So it's not that fully one is shut off and the other is on. It's always that one of them is always more active than another one. And then which one is more active will depend on us, like how regulated we are. Of course, it also, as we discussed, it depends on the environment. If there is a war, yeah, or like accident, of course, the sympathetic nervous system will be more active that moment. But when we talk even about the disease, like with chronic illness, the point is that the processes which are responsible for the healing are processes that are controlled mostly by a parasympathetic nervous system. So exactly this healing part of the nervous system. And you cannot fully heal if you are in the survival mode because it's physiologically impossible. The point is for all the healing, and actually before even starting with detoxing, with killing pathogens, if you need to kill pathogens, it's to regulate your nervous system, because if you will be in the parasympathetic state as much as you can be that moment, then the healing will just speed up, because the body actually doesn't ask you for healing. It asks you just for this
To
calm
get out of the
state
way.
so it can
Yeah.
do the job. It doesn't have to learn to do the job. It just
Yes.
asks you to, hey, give me peace. I need
Yeah.
a bit of peace to show you that I'm so intelligent that I know what I should do. And suddenly the, white cells starts to be more active and will kill the pathogens. The stomach will produce the stomach acid. You will start to digest better. Then the bile will flow. Again, you will digest better. You will absorb more nutrients. But this will only happen if you calm down, and not just by telling yourself like, oh, yeah, I'm safe. I've been doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not, doesn't work. It's really inner work.
Most people, like, let's say you have a chronic situation that's happening, or you're stressed, and you're eating the perfect diet. You're eating salads every day. You're eating whatever you believe is healthy food. But if you're in constant sympathetic spike, when your nervous system is constantly, you're either stressed, you're either on the go, you're eating this, and you believe that you're eating like that. I think that's also when people can look at food and gain weight, because it's like I really believe that weight gain is less to do about what you're actually eating and more about what you're thinking about the food
And the
and your
emotions
nervous
connected
state.
with.
Exactly. Because 9 times out of 10, I believe that your gut will digest as well as you can digest emotions.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter. Like for a long time, I struggled with severe digestive issues, and I know many women that have constant chronic either IBS or some form of chronic bloating or something that's happening where they're constantly not properly digesting food, or they're just always having some kind of bowel dysregulation, right? Oh, I think just about the majority of women seem like they're going through something like that. And I would say more times than not, it is not physiological. It is just your body trying to process emotions that are not being processed. So that could be childhood stuff. That also could be, whatever you're experiencing that you're kind of pushing down because you don't have enough space or you don't have enough safety. But safety for women, I think, is significantly more, much more of a factor than it is for men. For men, it's like I said, it's different. For men, safety, I believe, is closer to feeling like they can not need to be always on. The masculine is always go, go, go. The businessman is always holding things together. For a man to feel safe, that typically it means that there is some kind of nurturing in his life. There's some kind of emotional presence where he can express himself without fear of retaliation or without fear of that being used against him, right? For women, the safety is very physiological. It's also survival based. But for most people, safety is survival based. But for women, it feels like I think it'll be best if you share what safety is like for a woman. Like what do you think are the greatest aspects that you experienced, obviously as a woman, in how you orientate, for example, with health, how you orientate in business, and how you orientate in relational situations.
Mhm. So safety, well, for woman, it's like
Yeah,
multi-layer thing, like
yeah,
first the
yeah,
physical, you need to know that physically you are protected. Emotionally, safety means you can actually express yourself as the woman, because we are running on hormones that are monthly cycle. Let's say one day woman will feel more happier, the next day she may be more angry, the third day she will be crying. She needs to feel safe emotionally, that she's allowed to have all of those emotions and
yeah,
still not be rejected or judged because of that. That this is the way biologically we are operating. Another thing, well, to some women, I think to majority of the women, no, maybe not to all, is to also feel that they are provided, let's say financially, even if they are fully working. And I know, like, about independent women, we have to also think
yeah.
where the independence comes from, because usually it's actually from feeling lack of safety. A woman has to do so much to provide for herself. And it's also about the style of life, how people prefer, yes? But I think for more women, this kind of feeling that, okay, in case something happens, they are provided, so they are secured. And if there are kids also involved, that the kids will be provided.
Thing is, for most people, it's men are seen as just physical based, but to some degree, I would even argue that men are more emotional than women are, but in the sense that the emotions are much more taboo because when a man, like I think for men mostly, when they fear shit, like this is what happens in the collective of what I believe is women want emotionally open men, right? They want emotionally vulnerable men, but at the same time, the woman has there's many times where the woman is afraid of those emotions when they come up and she pulls back, right? So there's a almost a danger in most men's psychology that if a man brings something or stress to the table, then he will have to now undo that fire or potentially have it used against him later on.
Mm.
So there's, and this is specifically talking to like more higher power men that are just going and really making something happen, and they have a lot of responsibility, be it like they're, let's say maybe the business isn't going great this month and things are just not right. Can you really go, can he really go to his woman that moment and say, hey, hey, honey, like I'm a little stressed because the numbers aren't looking so good this month. That automatically, even if she's supported, something clicks in her head. Wow, there might be unsafety here. And for a man, creating a safe space for a woman is almost a priority, especially if he is very, guarded and then if he's the provider. Because, like you said, regardless of what a woman, how she, unless she's extremely solid within herself emotionally, it's almost immediate that she will start feeling a contraction in her if there is even a sense of safety. So there's times where men actually will feel they need to protect the woman from that, but at the same time feel alone and abandoned within themselves
Mhm.
because that's the reality that a lot of men live in this feeling of like this is I think what masculine unsafety is not really having someone to express to, because at the end of the day, if he's running a high business that's making 6 to 7 figures, 8 figures, there's a good chance he has investors that he can't talk to if things are going wrong. He has potentially co-founders that are also they're going through the same stress, so they're not very easy, to speak to because they might be emotional or biased in that, and they also can't talk to employees because employees, first of all, they don't hold that responsibility, nor they really care most of the time. But at the same time, also, that creates a power imbalance because when a boss comes to you for problems, you're like, okay, well, you're supposed to be my boss, right? So there's leadership. So I think for many men that is a almost like a prison that happens, that there's no one to really express to, that eventually that all internalizes, and then that starts metastasizing in potential illnesses. And I really feel like I want to touch on that because it seems like it's a silent killer essentially for I think a lot of men, or even a silent cage that most men are in that they don't even understand. Because like you were saying, most women see men as like, oh, they're just physical and they'll go and they don't want to listen to me. They don't know what's going. Like I'll have to basically they have to be told what to do because all of these things because that's there's just a very specific thing where they're on and off when they get home, most men turn off because they need time to evaluate
Process.
the entire day.
Mhm.
And more or less, women are extremely expressive, and that's their whole medicine is they need to express. Men don't necessarily need to vent like that. They need to have structured feeling held in certain patterns. So to some degree it almost feels if a man has another man to reflect on, because a woman basically is there to provide soft like emotional comfort and support for the most part as polarity goes, where the standard, if a man comes home and he doesn't have to think about where he's eating and that there is a huge amount of chaos that he has to manage in that moment, that's his safe space. He his For men, safety is peace, right? and and I think that's underspoken quite a bit, especially in the professional world.
And I would invite us to
Yeah,
make
exactly.
another episode, like much deeper on that, because it's a very deep topic. And what you are
Yeah,
saying here, uh, I agree with you, like how the man is, feeling the safety, how the woman is feeling the safety. I
yeah,
totally believe also that there are exceptions. Like when you say that always the man has to hide the emotions, I don't think that it's in everybody's case. It's really about the balance in the relationship and the polarity. And this is also why I sometimes think that some people even may get sick in relationships because some emotions are not coming out or they are not welcome, or they heal in relationships because they are
or
provided.
even also because I mentioned this as well um when you're making food, right? That
Mhm.
there's a reason why men love when their loved ones cook their food. Not like having a warm meal is not necessarily just I'm being cooked for. It's I'm receiving love, right? Because when you make something, when a woman makes something for someone that she loves, there's love, actually, that the frequency of love in the food.
Would that feel like a safety also for a man?
Oh yeah, that's huge. For I think for a man, that is the most because that a man basically most people say a man receives love through two
Stomach.
organs for the most part, the stomach and the lower stomach. Let's just say the lower parts, and those two parts, that's basically nobody really speaks about the emotions that are placed in food. So like if a woman's frustrated or if whoever's creating food who's frustrated and angry, that food can actually make you sick,
And
even if
there's
it's a very
data
high
for
quality
that.
food.
Mhm.
Exactly. So it could be like a very nice, nutritiously balanced meal, but if it's made with frustration and anger, it has been proven that it can potentially cause illness or even like nausea in somebody.
Mhm. I also believe that it's about also the energy of the particular people that come together
The
in
reason I
some.
mentioned the food is because it gives you context of how energy affects you. Because many
Mhm.
people, I feel like, need context. Because for everybody understands things from an agreed perspective or some form of, like, for example, if you're a scientist, you understand data and parsing information and a very, very specific way of how to read information, right? So if you connect, if you're in technology, you understand how hard drives work, how syntax, all the fancy terminology for technology works, like for
Mhm.
computing. So people need context for specific things, especially if you're speaking metaphysics, that has to be connected to something because otherwise it's a esoteric idea that's just floating and has no way to relate to anything. When I use food, everyone understands food, and that's why I kind of wanted to bring it in because there's many people that might not understand emotions very well. Because I remember when I was in my mid 20s, I thought emotions were a waste of time and they were useless data that's very chaotic and I'm sure most men think this way about emotions when, they haven't fully integrated that aspect of themselves. But for men, I think they just see emotions as chaotic, non-predictable, and not efficient ways of exchanging energy.
Mhm.
Because for a woman, this is like that is the core mechanism of they feel emotions and they express those emotions. For men, it's more logic, it's more structure, it's more there has to be a mechanism that drives this forward and it has to make sense. And I have to be in control of it to some degree, right? Emotions don't feel in any of those things because they make you feel uncomfortable, they make things difficult, and also if it's coming from a woman and you're trying to fix it, that's not necessarily emotions don't technically want to be fixed. They just need to be expressed. So there's always that dance, I think, with the masculine and emotions. And there's also the safety creates a big role when a woman feels safe with a man that can hold her in her emotional cycles, because a man is always like this, right? This is a man is designed essentially to hold this going up and down. Because if a man was going up and down, then you would both be crazy together and nothing would be fixed. So a woman feels the safest, both energetically, physically, and creatively, when a man is just solid. And if there's this, the emotions can bounce off of this, because otherwise they just go this way and this way and that way, and there is no structure of how to ground those
Mhm,
emotions, unless obviously every woman has their own masculine energy and they can ground their own emotions. But
mhm.
having a physical representation of that, I think 9 times out of 10 is always more stabilizing, let's say it that way.
Mhm.
Especially if that, and I'm sure you can experience, you can say from experience that grounding it yourself with your own masculine and having a masculine that's there, that's solid and it's emotionally intelligent is a very different experience.
That's what I want to say, because we are now talking about like masculine and
Yeah.
feminine, related to the healing, related to safety. But many people actually chronically ill are alone. So
Yeah.
they don't have a partner. We are talking also about our inner. We all have the feminine and masculine part within us, and we have to keep it in balance. Is it like health? Is it like a professional career, or is it just daily life? We have to make the balance. We have to learn to make that balance. But I want to still come to something, and I would like to wrap it up with actually giving tips to people how they could start even balancing the nervous system. So when we spoke about food and safety, because I want to give one example from the physical, emotional, and also energetic level, that people would understand what means the safety with and the symptoms. Let's go back to the food. Many people struggle with food intolerances, food allergy, sensitivity. At the physical level, all is linked to overridden sympathetic nervous system. So this exactly fight response. So at the physiological level, the sympathetic nervous system will be so high that will shut down the digestion. So you eat, and what's happening? The stomach doesn't produce acid. You cannot digest proteins. The gut bladder will not get signal to release the bile. You will not absorb the fat.
Just
Not
gestates and rots,
yes,
and yeah,
semi digested food will exactly rotten and will not go to such a chopping
yeah,
process, so the nutrients can be taken. And what's happening? The food start to rotten. It changes the not only food itself, but also the lack of acid, the lack of bile, changes the gut flora. When the gut flora is changed to less beneficial, it gives the symptoms, of course, because epithelial cells starts to be more loose, and the particles from the gut is like pathogens or food particles will go to the circulation. What's happening? The immune system must protect you. So it will gather a lot of immune cells to the gut to actually fight with that, let's say, food particles, which will be recognized as something wrong. You eat potato or potato, you have symptoms as kind of food intolerance, but actually it's your body protecting you from that food because you are not in the, let's say, rest and digest mode. At the emotional level, you press yourself, you have to perform, you have to do this and that. So emotionally you are like, okay, you have to digest this everything. As you said, you have to digest all the emotions. And when you don't know how to digest this emotion, you don't know how to release emotions, first how to even recognize these emotions, they are getting stuck in the digestion system.
yeah.
The digestive system
Everything is
start to
trying to be
get
digested, not just food.
everything.
Emotions need to be digested.
Absolutely.
Experiences need to be digested. Moments need to be digested, also integrated. And
And that will
if none of
also
them
give
happen,
us
exactly,
symptoms of food intolerance, because
exactly,
if you cannot digest emotion, how you can digest the food
exactly.
even. And then at
Yeah.
the energetic level, it's even much deeper, because it's about self-protection. I think you know more about this.
So basically, the way the two main systems is just starting to be conscious, because really consciousness, right? What does the word mean? It just means you're bringing what you weren't aware of into awareness. And that's what becoming conscious really means. You're just, so in this sense, in a very biological sense, understanding the nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, there's certain triggers where your body automatically turns off adrenaline and turns off cortisol. So there's two things that will happen because your brain understands signals and your body understands signals. Two signals that automatically your brain responds to that says, okay, I'm actually safe. Because you can be sitting on the couch and your brain might believe you're being chased by a tiger, right? Because does not know the difference between what fight or flight means. So, you know, a physical like a relapse or something, or a traumatic memory or something can trigger something in your body that your mind automatically believes you're in danger, or you're constantly in stress because you have deadlines or things to do or kids to manage or whatever it is. So if you're always in a sympathetic state, it's very difficult. You have to start learning to bring yourself into parasympathetic. And that can be done through two things. Number one, it's done through breath. And not just any breath. You can either do box breathing, which is like you were saying, you breathe in, you hold, you breathe out, you hold. That's one. This is actually used in the military to lower heart rate when you're in a combat situation, and then you need to bring your heart rate down very quickly. So obviously it's effective. But the easier one is when you breathe in, you breathe out longer than you breathe in. Because basically what that tells your mind is when you're breathing out longer than you're breathing in, that means you're not needing as much oxygen in that moment. So your brain automatically says, okay, I am safe. So if those just small little things like breath, whenever you're in a stressful situation, you could be in a meeting, you could be in anything, and you can quickly breathe in and just breathe out longer than you breathe out. It automatically switches your body from sympathetic to sympathetic to parasympathetic. Number two, and this has also been demonized quite a bit, glycogen, sugar. That automatically is a turn-off valve for any kind of adrenaline. Because your adrenaline runs also, if you're running low on glucose or glycogen, meaning you have low blood sugar, your brain automatically says, I'm in danger. Because I have to spike cortisol, I have to, because what adrenaline does is essentially mobilizes sugars in your blood to keep yourself in homeostasis. Because if your sugar level drops too low, everybody understands. You get dizzy, you get, all stuff, and you can't function. So when people are fasting or people on ketosis or whatever it is, you're essentially running on stress hormone. And everyone says, oh, I feel great on a fast, I feel this. That's literally only because you're running on a stress hormone. And you're not meant to run on stress hormones because first of all, it's very corrosive, and it's not good because also you're not in the less you're in parasympathetic nervous system, the less you are able to digest and to heal. So obviously, if you're fasting, you don't need to digest, which is nice. But also, you still need to typically function as a human. You have biological expenses that are needing to happen. So anytime you need to relax, there's find a healthy way of like a healthy glucose because automatically, if you're stressed, that's why people reach for sweets when they're stressed because automatically they understand it's called stress eating, right? Or whatever, but it's really your body's intelligence saying, I need to not be in sympathetic. And yeah, sure, you can reach for a muffin or you can reach for a piece of cake or ice cream or whatever. Sure, that will help that will soothe the nervous system. Um, if you're dysregulated, obviously you can potentially overeat and there's a whole problem and you have guilt and shame and all this stuff that follows that, which is not healthy I believe if you're going to eat cake, be joyous about eating the cake and don't allow the guilt of that.
But here
And
is a tiny line,
yeah,
because
there's a
I
balance. Yeah,
understand
yeah,
that the fast releasing glucose, it's calming, definitely.
yeah,
But many people, unfortunately, because of many like problems, they start to be addicted because exactly sugar brings them a moment of peace, a moment of safety.
exactly.
So you have to really
It's
know where is
biologically
the
programmed.
where
So
is
like
the
a
balance.
banana or like a
Mm.
orange or some kind of maybe a fruit juice or something. Typically,
Date.
if you yeah, date is also great because typically when you add fat and sugar together, that starts creating insulin resistance. So if you are imbalanced, and this is also a whole different story we can talk on later on because we're gonna wrap this up soon, but when your body is not regulated, and I would say 90 to 95% of the population does not have a fully regulated body. That means their nervous system is functioning perfectly in balance. And when your nervous system is not fully regulated, that also means your biology is not regulated. And you can have perfect health results, perfect blood markers, perfect everything. And typically, if you're within the 70 to 80% regulation, you're looking like you're in perfect health. But there's still certain things that are not right, or they're working. There's certain metabolic things that are just working slightly less efficient than they need to. And obviously that's why, but eventually, if those are ignored enough, they start compiling until you're 40, 50, 60 years old, and now you're hit with something more challenging. Many different, like your body can handle just about anything when you're regulated. Like it doesn't matter if you're eating, pesticides, poisons, more or less just about it'll process just about anything within reason.
For a
That's
while. We have to
Yeah, within for a
for a
reason for a
while.
while. Yes, for a while.
Mm.
There's obviously a certain point where it gets too much, and a lot of times for a while, for most people, can be a decade. So it's very resilient.
Mhm.
So if you allow your body to just be its perfect, mechanism that does all these incredible things at a million times an hour, then you're fine. And most people can handle any diet. If you want to do carnivore, if you want to do vegan, if you want to do keto, whatever you want, it'll tolerate it, it'll handle it, and it'll thrive on it, right? But if you're dysregulated and the level of dysregulation you are, that's where, reaching for the cake might not be a good idea because now if you're insulin resistant, and now that glucose that might supposed to help you actually will harm you because now your body doesn't know how to balance because it's not regulated. So you have to, that's why a lot of people, when they cut out processed sugars, they actually lose weight and have better symptoms. And if you go on a very heavy meat diet, that also cuts out the processed things, and temporarily it's good for you. And it can be good for you long term if you're regulated. But there's certain things, everything is very specific. And I don't know how many studies I've actually measured what the diet implications on a regulated versus a non-regulated system is. So I haven't went through the research, but I think it's pretty small. Um, so those are the two things I would just want people to just start being more aware of. Number one, your breath can shift you very quickly, and number two, uh, if keep your blood sugar at respectable levels, and basically every 2 to 3 hours you should be eating something um, that has some form of glucose in it because your body is constantly burning through it and your brain uses like 20 to 30%. So if you're constantly, like if you're a scientist or if you're constantly in business meetings and you're burning mental energy, that's you're burning quite a surprising amount of fuel.
Mhm.
Um,
But that also depends of person, like genetics and all physiology, because
yeah.
some people don't need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. I need to eat because I don't feel great if my blood sugar drops. But I know people who are doing well eating maybe just 1 or 2 meals per day, and they feel actually bad eating much more often.
That's what I'm saying. But that in those instances, there's a good chance that they're used to running on adrenaline. So
Mm.
typically, because I think more or less this is kind of like a rare blanket statement where yes, there's very specific biological differences where many people, so obviously not everyone's gonna be benefiting from one thing, but typically the recommendation is to eat even a small amount. Like if someone's not comfortable eating all, you just have to have like a snack, within that, if you're eating two big meals a day, that's fine. But having little snacks here and there to keep the blood sugar going, I think is very beneficial, especially if you're developing safety in your body, especially if you're regulating your nervous system. Obviously, like I said, if you're regulated, you can do whatever you want. You can eat one time a day, once every 3 days. It doesn't really matter. But if you're going through a journey of discovering how to regulate your nervous system constantly, because your body understands safety through nourishment. So if it goes long periods, like for anywhere between 3 to 6 hours without food, automatically I'm not safe because my resources are getting low.
Mhm.
So
So
you can intermittent fast, and there's great information about that. But at the same time, if that creates stress in your body.
fasting in general, if you go like 24,
Yeah,
48 hours, it's
yeah,
good, it's healing. We know that
yeah,
autophagy starts to
sure.
be more
No, there's no
active
question.
and clean the body. We have to point here that it's only when you want to and you work on regulating your nervous system, then the glucose is the key. You have to keep it
Yeah.
stable.
Because that's the key signal of safety in your body is I'm constantly being fed. Because your body can remember, when your parent, your grandfather went through a famine, and that was a traumatizing time. And a lot of the human body, like ketosis, is actually a survival mechanism designed to help you survive famine, right? So ketosis is innately like if your diet is constantly on a ketone, like if you're running off ketones constantly, you're always going to be more stressed biologically than if you were to be running off of glucose as well.
Because biologically
Yeah,
body understands
exactly.
that this is already for survival. So
Exactly.
you are
So
in the
so
survival mode.
regardless, like I said, if you're regulated, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But very few people are actually regulated. So if you're going through a healing journey, and you're wanting to be more relaxed, to let go of some traumatic patterns, safety is paramount. There's
It's
like
the number one.
it basically like if you don't feel safe, there's nothing your body will do to let go of that trauma. You'll just keep on like, hey man, I really need to heal this trauma, like this childhood stuff. I have to want to heal my inner child, all this stuff. But if your body physiologically does not feel safe, it'll take years to even go through the smallest little hurdles. So safety, with safety within weeks to months, you can do what you wouldn't have been able to do in years. And most people get stuck in this 30-year cycle of trying to heal these deep, deep wounds, but they don't focus on safety as the number one resource. So I think if you,
Here I
get
agree.
anything out of this, however long we spoke, that's the number one is safety first. And your body has very specific protocols of what it feels safe.
Mhm.
And then there's obviously a million different, logistical needs that need to be met, obviously, to allow yourself to really relax. But that's more mental relaxation. Physical relaxation is very basic.
Mhm.
So
So
is there any, yeah,
start with a breathing exercise, keep your blood sugar stable, go to nature. Nature is the
that's a big one
key
as well.
in
Huge.
healing. Spend time. If you prefer water, go to water. If you prefer forest, I love forest. I'm like almost every day now in forest. If you have pet, spend time with the pet. It's energy of that animal. You ground through animals, grounding, so walking barefoot, stepping out from the house, from the apartment, and looking to the sun, in the morning. So you kind of your circadian rhythm will be balanced more. So also the cortisol will drop. Spending time with people who doesn't drain your energy and actually you feel safe with. Boundaries, and that's another topic. And also
Yeah.
important for
We'll
the
probably have a whole thing
we
about boundaries
will
and
we
stuff.
will just definitely. But I think we cover quite a lot today.
Yeah. But let's kind of end this with just a quick like meditation, no more than like 30 seconds, where you just take a moment for yourself and you can come back to this as many times you want because obviously you'll know it's at the end of the podcast and you can just say, hey, if I wanted to reconnect and I need a little bit of guidance, this is it. So let's just start. Take a deep breath in through your nose and long out through your mouth. One more time. Last time. and stay here as long as you need, just for the end of it, and just understand and feel that drop in these 3 breaths. Feel your body, notice it. Did you feel a little softer? Do you feel a little bit more relaxed? Did your shoulders drop a little bit more? Did your jaws unclench just 1%, 1 even 5% not more? Being aware of that downshift is all you need to do in this moment, because at any point you can come back to that state just with 3 specific breaths. We love you.
Thank you. And see you in next
Thank you.
episode.
And this is Source Medicine.